how to raise venture capital for your startup. That's something I want to share with you guys. You know, I get asked that all the time. I've been fortunate enough to do it a couple times for my own startups, and then I've helped probably 25 other companies raise close to now $100 million in venture capital. So I want to walk you through a kind of a 5-step high-level process to do this. I mean, when I still remember when I was starting off working, we were working on Flowtown, me and Ethan, my co-founder, and we really had no clue. I mean, if you feel clueless and you're just starting, trust me, we've all been there. But we knew we just had to kind of do it and learn as fast as we can. And I still remember this one time first phone call we ever had with investors, and he asked us what our valuation was. And I don't know about you, but like at that time, I didn't even know what was a normal valuation. How do you even decide what your company's worth? But you know, we were a little ambitious, we had a little ego, and somebody told us once that Mint.com did $600,000 on $6 million pre-money, and we thought we were further along. The product actually had revenue, it was in the market. So we said 7 on 7. Why? It sounded cool. Now at this point it sounds ridiculous. But anyways, the investor asked, and we said 7 on 7, you know, raising $700K on $7 million pre-money. And he kind of went silent, and he goes, how's everybody else responding to that? The other investors that we had talked to, and again, this was our first phone call, but with confidence we said, oh, everybody's been really positive about it, and nobody's had any questions. And there was no lying in that statement because it was kind of true, because we hadn't talked to anybody and we were positive about it, and there were no other questions. But I tell you guys that story just so you know that this strategy that I'm going to share with you, these 5 steps, it's really fluid and there's different ways to do it. But at the end of the day, getting out there and starting the conversations will really help you get going. So number 1 is research the investors. So many times entrepreneurs go out there and they don't actually have a plan for which kind of investors or which specific investors they want to raise money for. So step 1 is to really go out there and do the work, spend the time, go on AngelList, go on Crunchbase, ask other entrepreneurs that have raised money who the investors have invested that are in the market or industry that you're in. So if you're raising money for a marketplace startup or an ad network or a game, you really want to talk to investors that understand those industries, because it's going to save you so much time from trying to explain something to an investor that doesn't really get it. You know, so that's a huge lesson. Do the work up front. Do the research. You know, the next thing I'm going to talk to you guys is there's 3 phases to raising. There's the fundraising process, there's the close, but then there's a step before called pre-marketing. And nobody really talks about it, but it is the work you do up front before you actually say you're going to raise money, so that when you go to do it, there's a lot of velocity and momentum in that process. And I would say the research, the investors, is part of the pre-marketing phase, and so are a few other steps I'm going to go over, but that is usually half of the full time that you're going to commit. You know, when I try to do fundraising activities, it's 3 to 4 months. So let's say 6 weeks will be spent just on pre-marketing phase, which will be building the spreadsheet of all the potential investors, doing the research, finding out which entrepreneurs they recently invested in, etc. But that pre-marketing phase is where you don't tell people you're raising until you're fundraising. Okay, so that's the phase that you do all the work, and when people ask you, are you going to fundraise? You say, no, we're just busy building the product. But we both know that when you go to fundraise, then it's a full-on effort, and you don't want to stop doing anything else. The next thing I want to share with you guys is when you talk to investors or when you first reach out to them, your product is your pitch. You know, a lot of people ask me about building a pitch deck and what are the right slides and what information should they disclose. And at the seed level, where most of the people watching this, their first round of funding, it is all about the product. You know, it's really your pitch deck's the URL. So don't think too much about all these other things. You want to do the research and make sure you understand the market and the competitive set, but that URL, that website, is going to be what 99% of investors go look at first to decide if they're even going to take a meeting with you. Or if you go through entrepreneurs in the way I suggest you do it, and I'll give you guys this tip, always ask entrepreneurs that recently raised money from an investor to make the introduction. And trust me, it may sound crazy, but most entrepreneurs that have just raised money, especially if it's their first time, if you email them and their email is firstname@company.com, they may give you that 15 minutes. And if you present to them in that 15-minute conversation the excitement, enthusiasm, and the product, you show them that you actually built something, they'll probably offer to help. And when they do that, that's when you ask for an introduction to their investor. That's the way I've always done it. I don't go direct. I don't cold email investors. I always go for an introduction. And just to help you remember this, investors don't want to meet with you. They want to be introduced to you. They don't want to meet with you. They want to be introduced to you. That's the right way to get investors. Now, and because it's product, so there's this process, the pre-marketing, the fundraising, and then the close. What I'm going to suggest is when you're doing this as an entrepreneur, you run the process. You do nothing else but actually fundraise. If you're the founder, CEO, designer, programmer, you're going to have to understand that while you're going through this process, if you truly want to be successful, and most people that start don't actually get it done, you want to make sure that you schedule that nothing else happens, that every morning you wake up, you work on the research, the pre-marketing phase, you get the introductions, you have the phone calls, you do all the work, and you really, once you start fundraising and you're starting to meet with investors and you see if they're interested and at what level they're going to be involved in your round, that's when you really just want to keep that process running. You want to go all in. You don't want to be distracted by anything else. If you have a team, you want to let the team know that over the next few weeks, you're all in and you won't be able to meet for the morning meetings or whatever it is. I can't tell you and I can't stress enough how important that is. And then the last part that I've seen founders just totally screw up. I don't know what it is. Maybe they just feel like they get confident that they have like 6 or 7 investors interested, like 70% of the round done, but they don't sprint across the close. Like if you're closing your round, the first thing I do when I work with entrepreneurs is I ask them what day, the specific date, are you going to close the round? And that date guides all other actions. It guides the amount of time you're going to spend in the fundraising process, the pre-marketing. It is everything. So when you know that date and you're getting and you have momentum and people are coming together, you want to sprint across the close. So those are the 5 steps and strategies to get your round done, to raise a great round of investors. You want to have a great lead investor that puts in about 25%, and then some great angels, and maybe even throw in some advisors into your round. That's going to get you going on the right foundation to build an amazing startups. Hopefully you found that useful. I would love to hear from you below in the comments. If you have questions, I didn't go over a lot, like there's real detailed stuff. If you have questions, leave a comment below. I'm also going to link up a special fundraising webinar that I hosted a few months ago to help you kind of go in detailed into this process. The link is below in the comments. I would love to hear from you guys. I want to challenge you to live both a bigger life and a bigger business, and I'll see you guys next Monday.